Good afternoon and welcome back to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Danny Vittori, and today we have on a very special guest from MassDOT's Beyond Mobility project. Would you mind introducing yourself for us?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me, Danny. My name is Derek Cravat. I am the project manager for our statewide long-range transportation plan called Beyond Mobility.
Great, and would you mind just give a quick overview of what Beyond Mobility is? Like, if you sum it up, what are its main goals?
Sure, yeah. So it is a goal-setting process. So the goal for Beyond Mobility is to set a series of strategic goals for MassDOT for the next, I'd say, 30 years as an agency, although the plan will get likely updated sometime before that in the future. But the plan challenges us to think about what we want the future of transportation to look like in Massachusetts in 2050, and then work backwards from there to identify what actions MassDOT should be taking now to achieve those goals and address that ideal vision for the future of transportation. So we'll be setting goals in a variety of different areas, like in safety and reliability and access to different destinations, things like that, where we'll be setting goals for MassDOT to achieve and identifying what actions we need to take to get there.
Right. I didn't realize that you worked kind of backwards, like you said. I guess that makes sense, but I hadn't thought about it that way. Because when you think about it, 2050 seems so far away, but it's not really.
Right,
in terms of progress.
Yes, yeah. It's almost like a thought experiment of thinking where we want to be, and then, of course, the actions we take now have really long-term implications, especially working in a field like transportation where infrastructure stays around for a really long time. So the infrastructure we build today will have really important implications for the future, 2050 and beyond. And so we're trying to envision that future and get us there the best way we can with our strategies that we implement now.
Definitely. So I'll ask, as the project manager, what's your role in the process? What do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I work with our team within the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to direct the project. We have a scope of work, so we have a number of work tasks that go into the plan. So of course there are administrative things like keeping the project on schedule and on budget. The plan is set to be wrapped up in December of 2023, so we're working kind of toward that deadline. So we try to keep all the tasks in the scope of work on track, so we're doing a lot of public outreach. That's a really central part of the plan. And I know we did a community activation here in Lynn, which was great. And so we're trying to really get the word out and meet people where they are, go into communities and ask people what they think about the future of transportation. So our role and sort of the project management role is to really direct a lot of that public outreach work, define what activities we want to do, how we're going to incorporate public input into the plan, and also complement that work with some other analyses that we do. So we're looking at a lot of data that we have at MassDOT and using that all to define what our goals should be and how we're going to use data to measure progress toward achieving those goals. So the management role is taking all these different areas and trying to combine them in a way that is cohesive and leads to a final product and a plan that articulates MassDOT's vision, our goals, and defines how we're going to get there.
Makes sense to me. Sounds like a good way to do it. And you'd mentioned public outreach. One thing that you've been doing is a survey, like through your website. So what specific information do you hope to get through the survey? Like, what are you asking?
Sure. Yeah, so the kind of core part of the survey asks respondents to assign value to different programs that we have at MassDOT. So there's 3 overarching areas that we ask about in the survey. One is roadway improvements, another is transit-related improvements, and the third is kind of other transportation system improvements that is sort of a catch-all. And so we, of course, have a variety of different programs at MassDOT that we invest our state and federal funding in. And so we're looking in the survey to see whether the public's needs are aligned with how much we are kind of putting into those different funding buckets. So we ask about things like electric vehicle charging infrastructure or sidewalk improvements or bicycle lanes and things like that. And taking that input and seeing first of all, whether it aligns with the kind of funding levels we have for those different types of activities in our capital plan. And secondly, if there are concentrations of respondents that are maybe in specific areas that need infrastructure in one area more than others. So as part of the survey, we also ask demographic questions. So we're asking respondents to provide their zip code and other demographic indicators, so we can say maybe, we heard from Western Massachusetts or from the North Shore area here are the biggest priorities facing those communities, and then being able to go to decision makers there or our MassDOT district offices or others working more regionally to say, here's what we heard back from folks in those communities as what their greatest needs are for transportation, and here are some steps we can take to help us better get there. So we're really looking for overall just sense of priority from the public on those different categories that we have in our capital plan, and seeing if there are any kind of patterns or trends within that data to sort of direct our future spending.
Definitely. And where would people go about finding this survey?
Yep, so the survey is posted on our website. They can go to mass.gov/beyond-mobility, and on that webpage, we have our survey linked for folks to be able to take. And so we hope to get a number of responses from all over the Commonwealth. We're hoping for over 2,000, so we're close to that goal, but any more would be great, especially to make sure we're sufficiently capturing input from all residents, including here in Lynn.
Yeah, definitely. And since you did mention Lynn, and since we are located in Lynn, how would you say this project would affect a city like Lynn specifically?
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
Yeah, so as part of our kind of goal setting process for the plan, we are looking at data on a variety of different things, including safety and environmental impact and transit connectivity. So the plan will not necessarily list specific project locations or get into directing funding. That's really what our capital plan does. But it will say, for example, that MassDOT has a goal to minimize maybe a disproportionate impact of the number of crashes that are in our gateway cities like Lynn and other cities in Massachusetts, and make sure that there's not a disproportionate impact of crashes or other kind of transportation indicators. And just looking at maps online and things like that, there are a number of top 200 crash locations, unfortunately, in Lynn, and that's a goal that we have as an agency, that we need to be looking at those top crash locations or other kinds of indicators that might be, disproportionately impacting Lynn and other communities across Massachusetts. So, we'll say that that's a high-level goal, and then look at locations that might be driving those trends and say, there might be a need to invest more at these locations in the future, and then that's where our capital plan will direct resources. So we're really trying to define at a high level what the needs are, and then look at which areas might be most critical to invest in. And there are a number of sort of data points that we look at, and Lynn may certainly pop up on the map as far as kind of in need of resources, and so that could certainly impact the plan down the line as well.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would work. And I'll pivot slightly to ask, Beyond Mobility, you're building on kind of previous plans that go to, freight, bike, rail, all different forms of transportation. Are you looking to sort of create one almost cohesive plan that envelops all of them, or how are you using them?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the plan definitely does not exist in a vacuum, and we're definitely being intentional about incorporating recommendations and things like that from other plans. So part of our scope of work involves creating what we're calling a plan inventory of all existing plan recommendations. So we're putting this all on an online map, so we're mapping out what different plans have said MassDOT should be doing in the areas of bike and pedestrian activity or freight movement, and saying, here's where these plans have recommended certain things, and here's where MassDOT has not yet actually implemented some of those recommendations, so we can almost do like a status check on existing modal plans and things like that as part of this effort, and then say, given where there might be existing recommendations not yet met, or maybe things have changed slightly since those plans, we might want to recommend something that builds on it or moves in a different direction, and use this as an opportunity to kind of reflect on where we are with those plans, what still is left to implement, and how we want to build on them going forward. And those plans might also get updated in the future, so this plan could serve as a sort of direction for those to take too. So if we set certain goals in this plan, that could help inform the next iteration of the modal planning and other types of plans, policies that MassDOT takes in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And my last question for you would be, you list, as you've said, so many factors that affect transportation. It can be climate change, people, where you are. Do you think that certain factors have, not more importance, but they tend to affect it more than others? Or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So as part of the plan, we're doing an exercise called scenario planning. So we're looking at different trends that are sort of out of our control, that we nonetheless have to plan for. So of course, climate change is a big one, as is telework. I think that will have some of the largest impact on the transportation system out of all the trends we're seeing. So, the ability, and of course we learned this during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of sectors do have the ability to work from home, and we're seeing that kind of play out. There are projections that show, there are mixed kind of trends, but a lot of the indicators show that there will almost certainly be more telework in the future, and that we were already seeing it kind of tick up slowly, but now with the pandemic, it's kind of accelerated that shift, and so that will definitely have implications for us, thinking about maybe people moving farther away from downtown centers, and when they do have to maybe commute to work, what the implications are for things like commuter rail ridership or subway ridership, or things like traffic patterns changing midday, and things like that just being different than what we're used to. So I'd say that's a really big one that we'll have to factor into future planning, is how telework impacts the sort of network. And of course, climate change, with increased flooding and droughts and things like that, of course, affect the condition of roads and our transit stations and all of that. So that's something we're making sure we're coordinated with the Clean Energy and Climate Plan that the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs has developed. And so, we'll be sure the plan is consistent with that. But that's all, of course, impacting the future of transportation too, and so we'll have to be mindful of that as we think about future investments. So those are two big ones that come to mind as far as kind of future trends that impact transportation.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. And I said the plan, the program itself is very impressive, the little bit I've been able to read. So
yeah,
thank you for coming on to talk about it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Definitely encourage folks to go online and take our survey. Again, the website is mass.gov/beyond-mobility. And we're just hoping to hear from as many people as possible to help shape the plan and make sure we're accounting for everybody's input. But yeah, thank you.
Of course, thank you. That sounds like a great plan. And I'm Danny Vittori. Once again, this is the Lynn Lowdown, and we will see you next week with more guests.